Okay, I think we're live. So, good morning and welcome. My name's Maddie Wong. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a Scarborough and Toronto journalist, as well as a recent graduate of X University School of Journalism. I'm thrilled to be your MC this morning on day one of UBC's National Forum on Anti-Asian Racism. It's my pleasure to be here today and to be a part of this forum. I've usually been a participant or the person behind the scenes, mainly because I get a bit of presentation anxiety, as you might see. But nonetheless, I'm so grateful to be sharing this platform with so many incredible leaders and change makers. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples that I am currently learning, working, and speaking to you folks on today. I acknowledge that Toronto is covered by the Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. As a settler, it's important for me to acknowledge the land that I'm on, as growing up, I didn't learn enough about the traditional names of the territories or the history of Indigenous folks at the educational institutions that I attended. As a journalist, I continue to commit myself to upholding and helping to fight for Indigenous sovereignty and the autonomy of Indigenous lives and lands. I'm not just holding myself accountable, but those who are in these institutions with me to learn more about Indigenous history and issues, as well as ensuring our reporting does not perpetuate further harm, is empathetic, and is trauma informed. Additionally, I like to acknowledge as a recent graduate of a university named after a key developer of the residential school system, I have disaffiliated myself with the namesake. I'm in solidarity with Indigenous students, faculty, and staff at X University in removing the name, as it is a symbol of cultural genocide and intergenerational trauma. And I intend to continue to uplift and support Indigenous folks. The University of British Columbia, who is our host for the day, has main campuses in Vancouver and Kelowna, BC. UBC's Point Grey campus in Vancouver is situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people, and UBC's Okanagan campus is in Kelowna and is situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Syilx Okanagan Nation. I'd also like to acknowledge that folks are joining us virtually today from many places, near and far, and acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of those lands. Now, please join me in welcoming Amber Cardenas of the Syilx Okanagan Nation Picticton Indian Band, who will sing the Okanagan song, followed by Elder Larry Grant of the Musqueam to share a welcome with us.
are beautiful. Atleko Sokenaken. Because we are Okanagan. Atlia Haitam Hula. Because our land is very beautiful.
Thank you so much to Amber for that beautiful music and such powerful words and such an amazing welcome. Next, I believe we will be watching a welcoming from Elder Larry Grant of the Musqueam.
CM to CA Theatolatin to swallow a huinamet to na whale, to E to sans tamukat Musqueam. Stay equinus uenet, Kirpalano, Hultimulto, Quis Helocto to Huinas, Mcnatin, Quis to E to sans tamukat Musqueam. Citizen to need to swallow a heloctala to mukalap Quis to na whale. Hi, Chap Gassiam. I say thank you. Thank you for having me doing the land acknowledgement for this national conference on anti-Asian racism. It's my privilege as a descendant of Keopalana, who was here to greet the first ships to arrive under Captain Narvaez and the first ships to arrive under Captain George Vancouver. And as our ancestor had done in the past, I do today, and raise my hands in welcome and thanks to all of you that are logged on today. And it's something that we have a great concern of the burgeoning anti-Asian racism that's lifting its head across the country. And it's, in my view, it's a racism that has never gone away for my lifetime. It's something that I have to deal with every day. And I know this is about anti-Asian racism, and I'm a part of that cohort also, because my father comes from Guangdong Province, Zhongshan County, and the village of Semun in China. And my mother comes from Musqueam, the Musqueam Indian band that is here in Metro Vancouver. And it's something to understand that on the ground, as the industrial slaves of Western society, the Chinese people and the indigenous peoples of this land were held down as industrial slaves to the economy here, even though many of our ancestors gave up their lives building the railroad to bring the provinces from Atlantic Ocean and connect them directly with the Pacific Ocean so that there was transportation clean across Canada. However, in all of the accolades that were given to the railroad builder, there is almost no indication of people of color giving up their lives doing the most dangerous work that they had to do, and the white workers not having to do the work that the Chinese people had done and given up their life for. And this goes all the way into the Second World War, where Chinese were refused entry into the Canadian military because they were not considered humans and not considered citizens of Canada. And along with our Indigenous brothers and ancestors that joined the Canadian military had to give up their identity, had to renounce who they are, had to give up their status as Indigenous peoples of Canada to join the Royal Canadian Military Services. And when they returned, they were not awarded the same privileges that were given to the white veterans that were here in Canada. The Veterans Association and benefits were not extended to the Indigenous brothers and ancestors that had fought and died to lift this country up to be a leader in democracy and freedom. And then it belies the fact that Canada has been recognized as one of the most wonderful places to live. And I know our people say that. It's the most wonderful place to live in, provided you're not a person of color, an Indigenous person, an Asian person, a black person. This is the most wonderful place to enjoy the privileges and benefits that are accrued because of a crime against humanity, that assimilation and denial of citizenship. So I leave this with you, and I thank you for having me do this presentation today in the sense of land acknowledgement. Kalet kwansi tsiatala e hilaktala te mokalap kwas kleas shui te tana wea hai tepka siap siasam hai. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Grant, for sharing such powerful insight as part of our welcoming this morning. And again, to Amber and to the both of them for such incredible, incredible welcomes again. It is now my honor to welcome the President and Vice Chancellor of the University of British Columbia, Santa Ono, to share some opening remarks. President Ono is the 15th President and Vice Chancellor of UBC. He earned his BA in Biological Science at the University of Chicago and his PhD in Experimental Medicine at McGill University. Before joining UBC, President Ono held a variety of teaching, research, and administrative positions at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, Harvard Medical School, University College London, Emory University, and finally at the University of Cincinnati, where he began serving as president in 2012. Please join me in a warm welcome for President Ono.
Thank you very much, Madison, and Heitzgut to Elder Larry Grant and to Amber. As we gather today, I want to acknowledge first the heavy and difficult days leading to this forum. We have been grieving with families and communities after learning of the remains of 215 children recently discovered at the site of the former Kamloops Indian Residential School in British Columbia. We have received news of this horrifying discovery of the deliberate murder of 4 members of a Muslim family in London, Ontario. Please join me in pausing to honor those that we've lost. These are stark reminders of why this forum is so important. These incidents did not happen somewhere far away. They happened here in British Columbia. They happened here elsewhere in Canada. In March, UBC was asked by a national coalition of prominent Asians to convene community voices. Students, leaders, academics, journalists, and members of nonprofit and the corporate world to hold honest and frank discussions about anti-Asian racism in our nation over these 2 days. We know there's been a growing tide of xenophobia, discrimination, and racism directed at various Asian groups since the start of the pandemic and continues to this very day. A new Angus Reid Institute poll, done in partnership with the University of British Columbia, reveals the depth and scale of this problem. One of the key findings of the poll, which will be discussed in detail during this forum, is that Canadians of Asian descent, aged 18 to 34, are the most likely to have experienced and been affected by anti-Asian racism and bigotry over this past year. This is why these difficult but much needed conversations need to take place. Over the course of these 2 days, we will hear from panelists and speakers who will share their insights and expertise with a national, actually an international audience. We will also be seeking your questions and input that you will bring forth in various sessions. This will help us as we start to shape, build, and identify pathways, priorities, and recommendations for next steps to address this. We are fortunate that thousands of people are watching today. In closing, I would like to reiterate my gratitude for your support for being part of this national forum. And I'll say again that UBC is committed for the long term to support and partner with each of you to take action against racism. I'd also like to thank the members of the National Coalition, the Steering Committee, the Academic Advisory Committee, multiple planning groups, everyone involved with putting this event together, volunteers, and the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, which will take a collaborating role in the development and implementation of the next steps that will arise from the discussion over these 2 days. And a special thank you to our 3 panel moderators this morning. Sophie Liu, the co-anchor of Global BC NewsHour, who will moderate panel 1. Zul Sulman, the editor of Rung Magazine and the executive director of the Rung Cultural Society, who will moderate panel 2. And Minel Matani, the senior advisor to the provost on racialized faculty and an associate professor at the Institute for Gender, Race, Sexuality, and Social Justice here at UBC, who will moderate panel 3. And now it is my honor to introduce Teresa Wu Pao, chair of the board of the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, which has provided financial support for this national forum, for which we are deeply grateful. Ms. Wu Pao has dedicated her career to promoting active civic engagement and volunteerism, social inclusion, cross-cultural understanding, and anti-discrimination awareness. An active part of her community for 40 years, she founded 7 organizations, including the Asian Heritage Foundation, ACT Foundation, the Ethno-Cultural Council of Calgary, Action Dignity, and the Calgary Chinese Community Services Association. She has served on more than 30 committees and boards at local, provincial, and national levels. Her community service has earned Ms. Wu Pao an Immigrant of Distinction Award, YWCA's Women of Distinction Award, the Chinese Canadian Legend Award, the Queen's Jubilee Award for Multiculturalism and Community Services, the Canada 125th Commemorative Award for Community Services, and the Queen Elizabeth's 60th Jubilee Award. She is the first trustee and chair of the Calgary Board of Education of Asian Canadian descent, and the first female member of the Legislative Assembly of Alberta, and cabinet minister of Asian Canadian descent. We are very proud of you, and thank you for your support. Friends, it is my pleasure to welcome Teresa Wu Pao to say a few words.
Thank you. Good morning to all who are participating in this event from across Canada and the continent. Thank you, President Santa Ono, for your very kind introductions. I'm joining you all today from the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, Nakota Nations, and the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. To Elder Grant, great to reconnect with you, and Amber. Sincerely thanks to both of you for setting us to start in a good way. With this gathering, a forum to examine anti-Asian racism within the broader context of racism against Indigenous, Blacks, Muslim, and other racialized communities. Amidst waves of remembering those being missed and hurt, communities yet again feeling blamed, isolated, attacked, and searching and seeking real justice and change. As a settler and immigrant, but also as fourth generation of my family in North America, descendant of the paper sun, and member of a family endured decades of separations and hardships due to the Chinese head tax and exclusion acts that instill in me an understanding of the generational impact of racist policies and the fundamental need for systemic change to achieve real and sustained transformations. The Canadian Race Relations Foundation is genuinely proud to be a sponsor of today's historical event. This is in a way a full circle moment for our foundation. You see, 33 years ago, the CRF was born out of the struggle for justice and accountability in one of the worst examples of anti-Asian racism in Canadian history, the internment and forced displacement of 22,000 Japanese Canadians. The Canadian Race Relations Foundation exists to ensure that this would never happen again. However, the spike in anti-Asian racism over the last year and a half has reopened many old wounds of racially motivated hate, rehashed long suppressed memories of discrimination, and served as a reminder that we still have a very long way to go in our goal of eradicating racism. From the Chinese head tax to the Chinese Exclusion Act to the Gumagata Maru incident to the countless micro and macro aggressions faced by Asian Canadians across the country, is evidence that what we see now is not simply a series of regrettable isolated incidents. The cumulative damage of these historical moments is why the CRF recognizes the National Anti-Asian Racism Forum as very, absolutely necessary and long overdue. The CRF works daily with racialized Canadian community groups, academics, and representatives from the public and private sectors to provide them the tools and research needed to address and act upon racial discrimination. We see this two-day event as the first in many steps in pulling these entities together. We also see this as an opportunity to draw from the knowledge gained to formulate solution-oriented calls to action. CRF is excited to be part of this very important conversation. We want to thank President Santa Ono, Dr. Henry Yu, and the fantastic team of students, faculty, and administrative staff who have worked so diligently over the past few months to make this event possible. The CRF is honored to sponsor this event. We sincerely hope that you'll enjoy the next 2 days, have fruitful discussions, and be propelled to act. and serve in the fight against the spread of anti-Asian hate. I would like to end with a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. We must accept finite disappointment, but we must never lose infinite hope. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, President Ono and Teresa, for leading us into today. Okay, folks, so over the next 2 days, we will be taking the time to learn, to reflect, and hopefully, like Teresa mentioned, work towards meaningful action and change. I wanted to say that many of you are here today because you or your community have been touched by anti-Asian racism. It's important for us to acknowledge the courage it takes to engage in these conversations that can bring up very strong and sometimes very painful emotions or situations that you, your loved ones, and your communities have experienced. As normal as it is to have these reactions, they can affect us all in very different ways. So UBC is inviting you folks to participate in the forum in a way that feels right for you and wants you to feel emotionally safe and cared for all throughout these 2 days of the forum. So if you need to step away, take a break, get some water, please go ahead and do so. Give yourself the permission to engage in the forum's activities in ways that are most comfortable for you. This forum was planned to create a space where folks can participate in creative and critically engaged dialogue. We are guided by UBC's Respectful Environment Statement to ensure a safe, welcoming, and inclusive environment for all participants. Creating a respectful dialogue space is a responsibility that we all share, and we invite you folks to review the community guidelines shared with you in both your email confirmation as well as in the feed loop lobby. But if you have any concerns regarding any behaviors or activities that do not align with these guidelines, a dedicated ombudsperson is available and their contact information is also shared in the feed loop lobby. Lastly, a very special thank you to all of the folks that are moderating and are participating in the sessions today. Panel 1 is set to begin momentarily, so I will see all of you folks there, and thank you very much.